1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. I love counting. Whatever the amount.
Hey everybody, it's the Lawn Gnome, and welcome to another edition of 10 for 12. And I'm really excited to bring this one to you, especially with all of the comic book films and all the crazy science fiction that is intertwined with these films. I really felt that this time we should talk about cult classics in the world of science fiction. As I like to say to a lot of people who may not be the biggest fans, amongst the large piles of crap, there is a little gem somewhere if you just look hard enough. And while some of them may not be the ones that have made the most money in the box office, like the Avengers, or anything that is comic book related like Man of Steel, there will definitely be some that, after they do leave the theaters, when they hit DVD, they will develop these massive cult followings, based on actors, based on directors, special effects, comedy, whatever it could possibly be. And that's what I want to bring to you guys today. 10 cult classic sci-fi films. Science fiction is something that's really shaped itself tremendously from the late 1970s up until today, so we're pretty much going to be seeing a lot of those movies. Now, of course, there's plenty that I probably will not mention, like the original Planet of the Apes, all the way up to Darren Aronofsky's Pi, but I feel that these specific 10 that I have chosen are because of the fact that they have become very impactful towards my life and my love towards film, and if you disagree, you're more than welcome to throw your comments in the box below and even give your own suggestions of what you consider some really great science fiction classics. But we'll start with number 10, and that is an animated film from one of the most underrated animation gurus, and that is Don Bluth. I'm talking about the 2000 film Titan A.E., starring the voices of Matt Damon, Drew Barrymore, John Leguizamo, Janine Garofalo, Bill Pullman, Jim Brewer, and Nathan Lane. It was a really interesting film, especially since it was animated. It really didn't relate towards children, even though it did have a PG rating, but it had great stories, a lot of backstabbing and conspiracy, and a kick-ass soundtrack. And that's why I love that movie, I own that movie, and I always enjoy watching it. Number 9 is one that I recently saw, and it's Guillermo del Toro's Mecha Adventure Pacific Rim from 2013. Since that movie, I have not had so much fun watching a science fiction film. It's got the anime-linked mecha, some great characters, including the great Idris Elba. It was just one of the best and fun science fiction films that I have seen in a while, and I'm so glad that I finally saw it, because even though I don't own it yet, I have it on the way, and I can't wait to watch it again. Number 8 is not a film that I really enjoy, but I have to keep it here because of the legacy that it has. It's been created in various special editions, director's cuts, what have you, and that's Ridley Scott's Blade Runner, starring Harrison Ford. Of course, based on the very famous novel, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip Dick. It's just a very original vision of the future, and it definitely had a lot of basis of future science fiction film projects. Some of them are, in fact, in this list, and I will definitely be pointing them out to you as I go along. But it's a very slow-moving movie, but it's got a very deep and rich plot with a lot of great character development, so it may not sit well with you at first, but I truly understand why it is the cult classic, and I truly understand why people love it so much, and it really is a groundbreaking film for its time back in 1982. Number 7 is a movie that came out in 1998, and it was the first time that I ever actually saw a television show become such a successful movie, probably post-Star Trek, and that, of course, is the first X-Files film, called X-Files Fight the Future, of course starring the cast of Gillian Anderson and David Duchovny, also starring Martin Landau. A very well done way to get people who had never seen X-Files before into the story, understand it, and really bridge the gap between 2 seasons of the show, because the show continued on after that movie. I was really surprised that David Duchovny or Gillian Anderson did not get an actor or actress nod, because the acting was phenomenal in that movie, and it really was one of the best science fiction cult classics I've ever seen, and the series has been known as one of the greatest sci-fi cult classic shows of all time. Number 6 is also based on a great cult classic that I finally saw very recently, and I'm really looking forward to doing its own review. I'm talking about the film Serenity, which came out back in 2005, and of course it was based on the Joss Whedon show Firefly. He got his entire cast to really close out the series, if you will. It stars a great performance from everyone from Nathan Fillion, Gina Torres, Alan Tudyk, the whole cast, and also including Chiwetel Ejiofor, who actually ended up being nominated for 12 Years a Slave just this past year in the Oscars. A fun film. You don't necessarily have to have a fandom towards Firefly, but if you have seen the show, you'll definitely get a good portion of the jokes, and it really ties everything together, and it's just an exciting roller coaster ride, and it's such a great film to watch multiple times. Number 5 is a movie that came out back in 1997, I believe, and that was Gatica, starring Uma Thurman, Jude Law, and, of course, Ethan Hawke. Loosely based on Aldous Huxley's book, A Brave New World, it's a very interesting film that truly goes by using science fiction, trying to get someone to understand where does he truly belong in this world, and how this one character goes through great lengths to really live out his dream. It's a slow mover, it's got more dialogue than science fiction elements in it, but it's a very interesting version of the future, and it's a very well thought out, well acted, and well plotted film. I highly recommend you see it. Number 4, of course, is one of the most landmarks in animation, as a matter of fact, really Japanese anime, and that is the 1988 film Akira. You definitely see a lot of Blade Runner elements in Akira as far as this vision of the future. A very deep, heavily plotted story with very well-developed characters. Although a lot of people may want to shake their fists or possibly throw the remote control at the television when you see the ending, but it was truly ahead of its time, a crazy vision of the future, really set the bar for what science fiction can become, and to this day, it is truly a landmark achievement for animation, for film, and pretty much what really got anime to develop in the United States and have it be the powerhouse that it is today. Number 3 is a movie that came out in 2001, and that is the science fiction film Donnie Darko. You will never be the same after you watch this brilliant film. It's the greatest film that you will ever see with Jake Gyllenhaal in it. It's also got his sister Maggie Gyllenhaal, Patrick Swayze, Drew Barrymore, Noah Wyle. It's an amazing film. It moves very slow, but you just get sucked into the story itself. And it's a crazy rendition about wormholes and time travel and how this boy gets these crazy visions to prevent himself from reaching a uncorrectable fate. That's the best way that I could put it without trying to give you guys any spoilers. But if you've never seen Donnie Darko, I promise you that you will be forever changed, and you will never look at sci-fi films the same way again. Number 2 is a movie that stars Jeff Bridges, and it did recently have a sequel, but I want to talk about this original, and of course I'm talking about the Disney film Tron. A movie that brought computer animation to the forefront, even though it wasn't what it is today, especially when you take a look at what the sequel is like, but Tron is definitely a movie unlike any other, and it may not be the greatest film, but it is definitely something that is a spectacle. It's very visual, and you can definitely be appreciative of what it really did for film. And if you're a Jeff Bridges fan, you will definitely enjoy it to a degree, because Jeff Bridges always puts a great performance on. And that brings me to the number 1 science fiction cult classic film. It may not be the greatest film, but if there's one thing I know is that I can never have enough fun watching this film, and it is the Luke Benson directed The Fifth Element. Bruce Willis, Chris Tucker, Gary Oldman, Mila Jovovich, Ian Holm. It is a crazy version of the future, also a lot of Blade Runner elements in that movie, and it is just a great sci-fi action film, and the most hysterical version of the future that you will ever see, because 275 years into the future, New York is still the same. It may have flying cars, and there may be no ground, there may be robots taking care of all the businesses, but it's still the same. People are still stuffing their faces with McDonald's, and cops are still just as lazy. But it is a roller coaster ride. It is so much fun. It's exciting. It's one of the most unique performances that you will ever see from Gary Oldman. It will introduce you to what Mila Jovovich was as far as an unknown back then. And it's just a crazy good sci-fi film. It's fun. And that's why I like movies. If it's fun, I will enjoy it. And that's why I think that The Fifth Element is the number one, as far as my opinion, as sci-fi cult classic films go. That's my list, guys. If you have any additions, if you don't like my top 10, just throw your comments down. Tell me what your favorite sci-fi cult classic films are. If you don't like one of my picks, tell me why. That's what this is for. I'm very curious. But these are my 10, and with that, I leave you guys with another great 10 for 12. Looking forward to another one in May. And that's it, guys. I am the Lawn Gnome, and remember that actions speak louder than words.